Madison, we got it all going now. Great, thank you. So as everyone, there's a lot of people still trickling in, which is great. So I will just do some housekeeping. If you are not on mute, please mute yourself. I think we're going to have a fairly large group. So if you want to type your question in the chat, my lovely co-host Madison will be with me today. Madison, there'll be a stopping point. So Madison will tell you a little bit of what she does, all the great work that she does at Unite for Her. So before if you've never been to this class before, any cooking classes, welcome. If you have been to our cooking classes, welcome back. My name is Michelle. I am one of the senior culinary dietitians. Happy to be here. Cooking classes are one of my favorite things to do. So we have what we start our cooking classes with, a food for thought moment brought to you by our partners at Merck. Usually we do them first. I am going to get one of my recipes started first because it's in the crock pot and it does take a full hour. So I'm going to start with that first. So earlier in the day, I chopped up my Brussels sprouts. So show you what I did, just so everyone is aware of how I cut them. So depending on the size of your Brussels sprouts, that's how you want to cut them. So I cut the stem off here, and then so it's flat when you lay it down. And then I cut it in half, and a large one like this, I'm going to cut it in quarters. And then when you cut it in quarters, these outer layers just fall off. So you can discard the stem and discard the leaves. If you have a food composter, if you have a garden, you can throw it out there to help us, eliminate some of that food waste. So here are my Brussels sprouts in here. I'm going to add some maple syrup. Full disclosure, I ran out of maple syrup, so I finished it off with honey. So you can actually do the whole recipe with honey. That is completely fine. I have some olive oil here. And I'm not adding the full amount because I wanted these to cook fairly quickly, so I can get it all in this hour. Salt and pepper. Give this a good mix. I'm going to put it on high for 1 hour. I love this recipe because if you are cooking for a crowd, and your oven is full, then at least you have your crock pot going and you don't have to worry about that being in the oven. And I'll tell you in a minute what's going on here. The lid on top of the crock pot, of course. Let's plug the crock pot in. That would have not have been ideal, right? Okay, so everything's all set. High 1 hour. We'll revisit this in about a half hour because I'm going to do a little bit more to the Brussels sprouts in a half hour. Okay, so my theme is Celebrate the Sides Part 2. You did not miss Part 1 unless you were with me 2 years ago. I did classes on popular side dishes for the holidays, and I lightened them up a little bit. We received a lot of good feedback from that, so I thought, why don't I do a part 2? There's so many classic side dishes. So when you receive the follow-up email with the recipes, there will be links to my recipes from a couple of years ago. So that was a homemade cranberry sauce. Instead of using sugar, we used honey. I did the classic green bean casserole, and then I did macaroni and cheese. I know there's a lot of you thinking, don't touch my macaroni and cheese, but I'm telling you, this recipe was excellent. So there was still a little bit of cheese in it, not as much, and some other good things in there to add some fiber. So for this class, I'm doing slow cooker holiday Brussels sprouts, mashed potatoes with a plant-based gravy, and or excuse me, a plant-based sour cream, and then a homemade mushroom gravy. So a lot of good stuff here. You can make it all at once and serve it at one big meal. But I am going to now go back to our food for thought moment. So our food for thought moments are brought to you by our generous partners at Merck. On our website, we have a whole link, food for thought, and we feature one ingredient from our recipes and just highlight that. We have so many ingredients at this point, cumin and almonds and kale, and it's just a brief video of all the benefits and how to use it. So today I am highlighting cranberries. So cranberries are rich in antioxidants, in particular anthocyanins. And anything that is red, blue, purple, that represents an anthocyanin. Those are really powerful antioxidants, so that can help fight the free radicals in our body. Okay, this down just a little bit. So we always have free radicals floating around in our body. We will never get rid of all of them. That's just how we are built, our body composition. But foods like this with a lot of antioxidants can help fight those free radicals that could potentially do some damage to DNA, which could increase our risk for any type of chronic disease. As we know, if you've ever had a urinary tract infection, the recommendation is cranberries, right? Cranberry juice, cranberries. So it plays a role because it has compounds that can prevent bacteria such as E. coli from sticking to the urinary tract, and then that reduces the risk of infection or helps clear up that infection, right? Heart health, because of the antioxidants along with the fiber, that can help with blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and overall vascular function. Digestive health, because there is fiber. All of our plant foods have fiber. So that's going to add to the good bacteria in our digestive tract, and that will also help boost our immune system. Anti-inflammatory properties from the fiber as well. So we want to try to minimize as much inflammation in our body as possible. Again, those are the things that can lead to any type of chronic disease. It is also rich in vitamin C, immune health, wound healing, collagen production, that type of thing. Okay, collagen production, like for cartilage, skin, like I said, wound repair, ligaments. So a lot of good things. I will say for fresh cranberries, you're going to get more of that vitamin C. When you're processing dried cranberries, you lose some of that vitamin C. Okay. So obviously fresh and dried cranberries have some different properties, but they're still very, very good additions to your diet. So add them, whether fresh or dried, to smoothies, on top of yogurt, oatmeal, cereal. That's usually what I will do. I will do a no sugar cereal. I will add cranberries. Now, there is some sugar that goes into most packages of cranberries. So if you can look for an unsweetened variety, that would be best. Sometimes that is hard to find. I've seen them at Trader Joe's. You can get them online, of course. I've also seen, it'll say like 40% less sugar. So if you're managing your blood sugar, you really do need to be mindful about the added sugars. I like to bake with these, so add them to muffins, breads, scones, biscotti, and that gives it that nice tangy flavor boost. And for the dried cranberries, when you're baking them, they do plump up a little bit. So storage, obviously, the dried cranberries are a little bit more shelf stable if you store them properly. airtight container. Fresh strawberries, fresh cranberries, they can be in your refrigerator for a week. After that, you might want to check on them. They can be frozen for up to 3 months. Okay, so there you have it, your food for thought moment brought to you by our partners at Merck. Okay, so we have the crock pot going. The next recipe I will switch to are our mashed potatoes. So if you've ever made mashed potatoes, we know we're going to cut them into cubes and put them in a pot with water. We boil them until we can get a fork easily goes through them. Okay. I chopped these last night. So if you want to chop them the day before, put them in water overnight and put it in the refrigerator. That will prevent them from browning. Even if you have them on the counter for a couple hours, they will brown. So put them in some water on the counter. I forgot to do that one time, but once I rinsed them, a lot of that brown came off of it. But this is great because you can do it the night before if you have a lot of other things going on. So I have my potatoes boiling over here. And the next thing I'm going to do is add my cauliflower. So that's the trick right there. That's the trick. So less potatoes, and we're going to add some fiber, vitamins and minerals. These are part of the cruciferous family. So I'm going to carefully dump my chopped cauliflower. Also in the cruciferous family, broccoli, kale, bok choy, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. They have a ton of anti-cancer fighting properties. So always good to try to fit those vegetables into your diet if you like them. If you don't like them, don't eat them because they're healthy. Just make sure you're getting enough of the other plant foods. So dumping in the cauliflower, I'm going to let that boil until that becomes soft, and then I'm going to drain. So while that is cooking, I'm going to start my sweet potatoes. So sorry that I'm jumping around so much, and I should have asked if there is anyone that is cooking with me today. I should have asked that. I apologize. Okay, I'm going to take that
I'm
as a
cooking
no.
along, Michelle.
I'm sorry?
I'm cooking along.
What are you making?
The mashed potatoes and the gravy.
Excellent. I'm glad I asked. Okay. So are you okay so far with everything?
Yeah, I'm a little ahead of you, so I'm good.
That's great. I know because I'm talking so much, right? So I am going to go ahead and make the homemade sour cream. Now, I'm sure I really do enjoy sour cream. So when I chose this recipe, I'll be honest, I've never made a plant-based sour cream. I did know that typically you use cashews. We're not cooking, but it was excellent, excellent. I was pleasantly surprised. I'm not just saying that. This is really good stuff. So I've been soaking my cashews for a couple hours. If you don't have a high-powered blender, you really should soak your cashews. You can fill up a teapot and put boiling water in there and just leave them in there for even a half hour. I just like them super soft. So I'm just going to drain these. If you have a nut allergy, clearly you will not be using these. So maybe try a seed. Someone recommended maybe beans. I don't know. I mean, you will get that creamy texture. You won't get that. It will be a different flavor, but I think, beans don't have as much flavor. So maybe that's not a bad thing. So I have some water here.
Michelle, I'm wondering if maybe you could use tofu in place.
That's such a great idea. Yes, you could. And again, you don't have that powerful flavor. I have some lemon juice here. And I have some apple cider vinegar. If you have white vinegar, that's totally fine. I don't know if I would use balsamic vinegar. That's going to give it a different taste. So I'm going to blend this. So I'll lose you for a second. Okay. Here I am using plant-based yogurt. This is actually a coconut plant-based yogurt. Delicious. It has just a mild coconut flavor, but it's the same consistency as Greek yogurt. You could use Greek yogurt if you'd like. Obviously, then it wouldn't be completely plant-based. Okay, I said I was going to go to the sweet potatoes, but I just wanted my oven to preheat. So the oven's preheating to 375. This out of the way. You see how the cauliflower is doing. A little bit longer. Okay, so I have a prepared baking sheet with parchment paper. I have my bag of sweet potatoes that I chopped last night. You don't have to put this in water. These do not brown once exposed and cut. And I have some olive oil, some honey, and some cinnamon. I am not going to use the full bag because it's a lot. You want everything in one layer. And of course, when you roast any type of vegetables or even with the potatoes, try to cut everything as the same size and thickness because you want it to all cook. You want it to all cook evenly. Just a little bit more. And I'm just going to use my hands instead to mix all this together, which I probably didn't have to spread it out like that. So I'm going to be mixing it. All right, so first my olive oil. Then my honey maple syrup will work also. Whatever you have serves the same purpose. And my cinnamon. You could also add nutmeg, pumpkin pie spice. If you do decide to do that, do a little bit less of the cinnamon because it might be too much. You don't want it to overpower your dish. So obviously this takes the place of the sweet potatoes that are canned in syrup, and then you put marshmallows on top. Listen, I am not going to push that aside if that's served to me because it's delicious. That's like a dessert. So this is a little bit lighter. And with the herbs, it's always great to use as many herbs as we can. Herbs and spices, that's what I should say. Spices. Okay, just gonna wash my hands a little bit. Okay. going to get a little fancy.
Do you want me to read the question to you, Michelle? I'm not sure if
Yes,
you can see
please.
it. Okay. Susan said, I had planned to make the Brussels sprouts, but when I got the recipe and saw how much sweetener was in it, I decided not to. I'm on a low carb diet because of pre-diabetes. I may try the crock pot method another time with savory flavoring instead. Do you have any suggestions for me?
Yeah, I missed, what made you not do the recipe? I missed that.
The amount of sweetener in it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You don't have to use all of this sweetening. You can make it more of a savory dish, like you had mentioned. Any type of herbs and spices that you enjoy. And then if you were interested in using, we're going to be putting feta cheese on top. So that's going to make it savory. You could, or Parmesan cheese, but thank you for bringing that up. That's a great point. Or not a great point, but a great question. I saw another question come up.
Yes. What temperature do the sweet potatoes get roasted at?
375. All right, and we are going to bake these for 30 minutes. Okay, Google, set a timer for 30 minutes.
Okay, 30 minutes.
All right,
Starting now.
what I did was I got fancy by using my microplane and used the nutmeg seed. So all I did was just grate it over the microplane and a little bit of powder came out. Usually you buy the ground nutmeg. So same thing. We were doing a fancy recipe. I think it was like a warming milk punch. It was like a mocktail.
I don't know, but I found these results on search.
Thanks, Google. And that's why I have the seeds. I'm usually not that fancy. I usually use the ground, but it does look fun. So, okay. So I believe my cauliflower and potatoes are finished. So I'm going to take this opportunity to get going to regroup. So Madison, if you want to talk about your role at Unite for Her.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Madison. I am on the development team at Unite for Her. I am a senior development associate. So I work with the development team on all different kinds of fundraising. Usually I work mostly on grants, so writing different grant applications to different funders to bring in more income to serve more individuals. But then I also pop in and help with our fundraising events. So with Harvest, silent auction items, things like that. We wear different hats. So yeah, I've been on the team for about 6 or 7 months now. So I'm one of the newer members, but I've known about Unite for Her for 4 or 5 years. I've had some family members in the program. So just have been connected for a little bit now.
Thank you, Madison. Madison and our development team do such good work. This program would not be here if it weren't for our development team. They do the hard work. And we get to do this type of work. Not that it's not hard work. We put a lot of work into this, but we wouldn't be able to do this without Madison and the team. So I'm always amazed at what they do.
Well, I
how
could
much they
never
do.
run a cooking demonstration. I don't even have the counter space for it in my kitchen.
That's so funny. Yeah. I was fortunate to have a kitchen that I could work with. So we just started doing cooking demos during COVID. So we had to learn quickly. As you know, everyone had to adjust quickly for COVID. All right, so I have my mashed potatoes, my cauliflower. Now I'm going to add, you can add regular milk again if you're not making it completely plant-based. I have here almond milk. You can use oat milk, macadamia milk. I have some vegetable broth, some olive oil, and garlic powder. Now we are going to add our homemade sour cream, okay? The recipe calls for 1/4 of a cup. If you like the taste and you want to add more, you certainly can do that. All right, so hopefully you can see the thickness of this. It's not as thick as regular sour cream, but it's still going to do the job. I use a potato masher. You can use an electric mixer. It depends on what type of texture that you want. So I've done it both ways. And it smells so, so good. So funny story while I'm mashing this. Last week my computer crashed. In January, we have what we call plantuary. So in January, it's like we all kind of want to get back to our regular eating habits, even though this is going to help you. Get back to our regular eating habits. So we do a plantuary, a lot of social media, TikTok videos, just with blogs, and the dietitians have some speaking events or speaking segments. We do new recipes, that type of thing. I also do a grocery store tour with a voiceover. And it took me a while. I'm going to put this aside so we can make the gravy. It took me a while to write this grocery store script for a voiceover. It was like 3 pages and a computer crashed and I lost the whole thing. So I had to call our IT that helps us for things like that. And I was, of course I was frantic and I was like, oh my gosh, I lost this whole thing. And my script was up there, but it was blank. So he saw the title and it said grocery store tour script. And I thought, this guy, I want to know what he thought. Like, my gosh, the way you were acting, it was like, some dissertation, but it was a grocery shopping voiceover. So that's the kind of work we got to do. Okay. So let's regroup. We have the sweet potatoes in the oven. The crock pot is going with the Brussels sprouts. The homemade sour cream, all plant-based, is finished. We put that into the mashed potatoes. So what we're going to do now is work on the gravy. Okay, so this is mushroom gravy. And I have my vegetable broth already thrown in here. It's fantastic if you have your own vegetable broth. If you make homemade vegetable broth, that would be great. And honestly, all of the scraps that I had with the Brussels sprouts, if you give them a good rinse, you could make a vegetable, any type of leftover, stems or leaves, give them a good rinse, freeze them, and they can be an excellent vegetable broth once you get a good amount of different vegetables that normally you would throw away. So anyway, so I have my vegetable broth there. Here I have dried mushrooms. You can use fresh mushrooms for this recipe. I must have missed some. Oh, you know what? Madison, am I going in and out?
No, you're okay on my end.
Okay, perfect. I was seeing messages, but there are different types of messages. Anyway, I have dried mushrooms. You can use fresh mushrooms if you would like. There is a different recipe I can get you one, or you can just Google how to dry fresh mushrooms. I will say these can be a little challenging to find. Different grocery stores have them in different places. I was at Acme and They were nowhere to be found. I was ready to leave the store, but there was someone working in produce, and they were like, you know, you have those bins and they fill them with apples. They were actually down below. There were bags of them. So you might have to ask for them. Usually the bags are 3 ounces. My mom said they look like leaves, but they're so good and they're flavorful. So I have 1 ounce of dried mushrooms, and there's a couple different types of dried mushrooms. So in the recipe, it'll tell you which ones would work best. So I tossed them in. I'm going to bring them to a boil and boil for 1 minute. In the meantime, going to dice my onion and some herbs. All right, so even though this is going to go into a blender, I still like to chop it up just a little bit. So you do not have to be fancy with this at all. Ooh. That's a great teaching moment. Make sure your knife is sharp. So. And sorry if you had to see my messy pantry. All right, let's try it this way. So I forget who was cooking along with me. Are you okay? Am I going too quickly? Did your onion get thrown across the kitchen like mine?
I'm good.
Good. Okay. So we've got these all ready to go. And I'm going to take this opportunity. So I have some garlic over here. I'm also going to take this opportunity to encourage everyone to check out our nutrition hub. And there are a lot of great resources. So we have a nutrition guide. We have a side effect guide. If you scroll down, once you open the hub, there will be a tab for treatment guide, side effect guide, resources, and that will include resources from the American Institute of Cancer Research. Nutrient guide, treatment guides, yes. So if you are currently getting treatments, radiation, surgery, chemotherapy, there are ways that you can prepare for during. A lot of great tips for that. And I love our guides because they're not clinical looking at all. They're very user friendly. Okay, I'm going to take a look at our sweet potatoes. All right, so I flipped the pan. I'm going to give them just a few more minutes, depending on your oven, depending on the size. You just need to be mindful of the time. So I'll try 4 minutes, see where that takes us. All right. Okay, so there was also something else I was going to do. Oh, so all of our food for thought recipes are on there. We have back to basic videos where it shows you how to mince garlic, how to dice onion, knife skills. So we already have them loaded up. On Friday, we did them about a year ago. On Friday, we recorded more. So a lot of great resources on there. If there's something that you would like to see, please let us know. Okay.
Michelle,
these-
we have
Yes,
another
go ahead.
question in the chat. Anne Marie asked, could you please explain why dried mushrooms are best for this? It seems like you are rehydrating them. I'm guessing you get a better variety of mushrooms than they often have in fresh, but I'm curious.
Yes. So if you are using dried, right, it's like we're reconstituting them, right? So there's more flavor. Once you pull the water out of it and you dry them, you're actually using more mushrooms, and there's just a more robust and savory flavor. They won't come back to full size like a regular mushroom. So that's the reason why. I think if you were to use plain mushrooms, I don't think it would, obviously it would work, but you're not going to get as much flavor as the dried. So that's a great question. It's a great question. Now, if you don't like mushrooms, maybe you can try something else. I'm trying to think what else might be savory. You could do, I don't know, maybe like a bunch of herbs that you enjoy, like some dried herbs and spices. Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. If anyone has any suggestions, I would love that. Okay, so I'm heating my skillet on medium here. Add some olive oil. And I'm going to throw in my onion and my garlic and saute that. We just want them to become translucent. Just be mindful that you don't burn. Typically, we'll add the onions first, then the garlic. Since I don't have it that high, I am throwing the garlic in at the same time. Okay. Now for the herbs. The sky is the limit for the herbs. I am using parsley. It's actually from my husband's garden. So it's starting to wind down, but some of our herbs can really linger. I was surprised that parsley was still there. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. You can use dried herbs as well. That's completely fine. I have some chives because sometimes we don't want to be left with herbs, fresh herbs. You know, you buy them, you use a little bit, and then they get tossed. One little trick is you can wrap them in a damp paper towel and store them in a seal-tight container. So a plastic baggie, a little glass dish, and they'll last you a little bit longer. Here is some fresh rosemary. If you grow rosemary, man, this is such a hardy herb. You will get a lot out of it. So I'm just pulling them off the stem. It was just the parsley and the chives from the garden. That smells so good. There we go. All right. Okay, I am going to add my herbs. And because it's not on high, my skillet, this will bring out some of the beautiful fragrance of the herbs. We never want to cook our herbs. We can add them fresh as a garnish, or we can lightly saute them. All right, so while that is cooking, we're going to combine some cornstarch and some plant-based milk. You can use regular milk if you'd like. So this will be our thickener. If you don't want to do cornstarch because it's not something that we use quite often, then you can use flour. That's fine, or any other type. I think arrowroot you could use. This is going to go right in a little bit. We will also add some soy sauce. Going to let this thicken. All right. Next step is to run it through the blender. I need to empty our sour cream and rinse this out. So just give me a moment. Madison, are you able to open up the event calendar? Do you know where that is located? I think it's one of the drop downs.
I will
And
find
then,
it.
perfect. Okay, bringing back the blender. I'm going to pour the entire pot of the vegetable broth and I'm left-handed, vegetable broth and mushrooms. And then add in my herbs, garlic, cornstarch, and onions.
Michelle, I put the link in the chat if anybody's interested in signing up for upcoming cooking classes. I believe the next one is November 21st.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep. Thank you, Madison. And I want to mention too, our largest fundraising event will be in February. It is held at the convention center, and there are over 2,000 gymnasts that come to the convention center and they compete. They're all wearing the same leotard And it's just a beautiful event. The reason why I'm bringing it up is because we always need volunteers to help out. It all over the convention center where it's, either working the door or timing the gymnast, working in apparel. There's always a lot to do, and we just need volunteers. So oh my gosh, that smells so good. So we could have just thrown the herbs in there, but like I said, just, sauteing them a little bit brings out the more of the taste and the flavor. So if you find that this is not the right consistency, some people like their gravy like this, some people like it thicker. You can add more cornstarch to thicken it up, completely up to you. I think I will add a little bit of cornstarch, but if you want to leave it just like this, that's completely fine. I don't want it too thick though. Where did I put my cornstarch? There we go. With all of these recipes, I didn't add that much salt, so you might just need to give it a taste. For the mashed potatoes, you can certainly add more of the, you can certainly add more of the, to the mashed potatoes, you can certainly add more. What am I trying to say? The homemade sour cream is what I'm trying to say. Can the gravy? Yes, absolutely. It could last because it is plant-based. It can last in the refrigerator for up to 5 days. You want to leave it a little bit longer, you might just have to smell it, taste it. If it tastes foul, get rid of it. But it can be frozen for up to three months. So same with the sour cream that can be frozen as well. Much better. Okay. We're going to wait a little bit more for the Brussels sprouts. So I will start serving everything. Let me get some of this out of the way. End of class, it starts looking like a nightmare. Okay. So here are my mashed potatoes, just so you can kind of see how thick they are. So we've added some good nutrition in there, right? Those cruciferous vegetables. Pour my gravy on top. Still a little bit on this thin side. Sprinkle some herbs on top. All right, there you go. Our mashed potato with gravy, mashed potato and cauliflower with gravy.
Michelle, I see Jennifer, who was cooking along, is done and is eating hers. Jennifer, how did it turn out?
Well, my potatoes came out a little bit runnier than I'd like. I should have added the liquid a little slower. So they're a little, they're too runny, I think, but they taste
Yeah.
good. Next time I'll just add the liquid slower.
So, and yeah, or you mean the potatoes were runny or
Yeah.
the sour cream?
The potatoes are.
Potatoes. Oh, okay. You know, you could have, if you had, not sure how many people have extra cauliflower in the refrigerator, more cauliflower, or put some beans in there and mix it. That'll thicken it up again. Those white beans really don't have that much flavor. They're delicious, but not like a powerful flavor as like a black bean would.
The gravy's out of this world though. I'm definitely, that's going to be a staple.
Great, great. I like when there's someone that cooks along that can kind of validate that the recipes are good.
It's all very good. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So, perfect. Here are our sweet potatoes. So again, sweet potatoes roasted at 375. I did it for 30 minutes, but I stopped it, gave it a twist. Cinnamon, nutmeg, honey, or, okay, Google, stop. Honey or maple syrup, as the question was asked earlier. If you are watching your blood sugar levels, make this into a savory dish as well with herbs and spices. And if you make that, please share with us, or even if you have some ideas, share with us. I can always pass that along. All right. So let's see what our Brussels sprouts are doing. Okay, Google, stop. So, a couple things about the Brussels sprouts. Yeah, so my fork is going right through them, which is what we want. However, all right, let me just get these in. I have my dried cranberries. I'm not putting everything in there because I cut the recipe in half just so the Brussels sprouts would cook quickly for class. I'm adding some feta. You do not have to put feta. If you want it completely plant-based, you can add nutritional yeast. So I feel like I'm going to forget all about all this. Okay, so I want to talk about nutritional yeast. I want to talk about the Brussels sprouts and the cranberries. So for the Brussels sprouts, you never want to overcook your Brussels sprouts where they're like that army green. Sometimes green beans can get that way. That means you've overcooked it. You still want the Brussels sprouts to have that green, vibrant color. You do want the fork to go through it. You don't want them completely mushy. If your fork can't go through it, sometimes some people don't mind that. You know, they'll be a little bit tougher, which again is okay. Now, for the cranberries, if you decide to use fresh cranberries, remember that the cranberries will burst and it will discolor your Brussels sprouts. Okay, so I've done it that way before. I didn't care because I love fresh cranberries. So I didn't mind having discolored Brussels sprouts because it was just me. But if you are making a holiday dish, then just keep that in mind. Or what you could do is cook your cranberries on the stove for a little bit, maybe in just a little bit of water to make them soft. Drain the water and then toss them in after the Brussels sprouts are done. And it's nice because with the cranberries and the feta cheese, it kind of takes that tartness out a little bit, right? Because we know that unsweetened cranberries are very tart. the cranberry recipe that I did a few years ago was made with orange juice and a little bit of honey, not that much though. And then once you cook the cranberries, they explode, but you don't want to do that for this type of recipe. So let's talk about nutritional yeast. If you have never heard of nutritional yeast, it's a deactivated yeast. I don't think I have any, or I will show you. It looks like they're little flakes. And it looks like panko, but it's yellow and it has a savory, salty, cheesy flavor. So if you're making a plant-based cheese to go on top of macaroni and cheese, that's what you would use to give it flavor. So typically that would be cashews and the nutritional yeast. So if you don't want to use the feta in this recipe, you can use nutritional yeast or just leave it out completely. Or you can leave the cranberries out and again, make it more of a savory dish. So, all right. So we just left that in a little bit more just to reconstitute the cranberries a little bit so they plumped up. And the feta cheese, we know feta cheese doesn't completely break down and melt, but it softens it up a little bit. So last but not least, all right. Here are the slow cooker holiday Brussels sprouts. So notice they're still that bright green. The cranberries give it a burst of color, so it's perfect for any holiday side dish. All right, and there you have it. Under an hour, 3 recipes. However, I did a lot of prepping before. So again, white potatoes, sweet potatoes, you can do the night before. White potatoes, just keep them in a pot of water so they don't brown. Sweet potatoes, you can cut up. Just put them in a seal type container. They will be fine. And Brussels sprouts, same thing. I chopped them last night. So I had an exciting Sunday night. Any questions about these 3 recipes? You're welcome. Good. Thank you, Roberta. Yes, sweet potatoes were peeled, but you probably don't have to. So just give them a good scrub. Some people don't peel their white potatoes for mashed potatoes. So as long as you give your potatoes a good scrub, that's great. Thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, and that's where all the fiber is. Most of the fiber is in the peel. So good. Yes, the mushroom gravy. It is excellent. It is excellent. So in about an hour, you will receive the recipes. And thank you, Jermaine. You will receive the recipes. Don't forget that, yes, Brussels sprouts could have been roasted as well. I meant to bring that up. So don't forget to hop onto one of Aubrey's classes. Her theme is soup season. So she's doing all different types of soups since we're getting into that cold weather. However, it's been pretty warm for November in the Philadelphia area, but yeah, so eventually it is going to get cold. So make sure you hop onto her class. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know. If you do make this, please send us your pictures, your beautiful face in the picture. If you're comfortable with that, we always like to encourage our community, others of our community to join our cooking classes. So excellent, Jermaine. You'll love that. You'll love that. All right. Well, with that, everyone have a great rest of their week. Have a wonderful holiday season. Oh, you're welcome, Anne-Marie. Have a wonderful holiday season, and I will be back for January and February. No idea what recipes I'm doing, but thinking about it. So if you have any suggestions, you can let me know.